Yes, exactly. But anyway, so I have a simple question. I want you to think about it for a minute. Would you like to thrive in your life? Would you like to be happy? Would you like to have a life that is purposeful, where you're overflowing with joy? Let me read something to you, very familiar passage of scripture. Psalm 1. Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked. I'm not reading that one up. Oh yeah, you do have it up there. Okay, never mind. Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand around with sinners, or join in with mockers. Joy, by the way, means extreme happiness. In the original language, or it says blessed. But they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. And they are like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit each season, and their leaves never wither, and they prosper in all they do. The first part of that passage of scripture says, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand around with sinners, or join in with mockers, is talking about who we surround ourselves with. What kind of friends do we have? What kind of relationships do we engage in? If you want to have joy, the first thing is to consider who you spend time with. That's what we're going to be talking about today, as we go back into the subject of wisdom and wising up and doing things God's way. We've probably all heard the saying, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. My mom and dad used to say that to me a lot. Why are you hanging around with so-and-so? And then I thought, well, they're probably saying that about me, that person's family. Why are you hanging around with Patina? She's always in trouble. It's still the same. Why do any of you hang out with me? Shauna used to say about one of my friends, because yes, I'm a practical joker if you don't know that. And she's like, an understatement. And she goes, why would your friend Karen hang out with you? Why was she your friend? I'm like, I don't know, but I had fun. Anyway, so I love what Proverbs 13 says. It says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. So if you're hanging out with wise people, it's like it rubs off on you. You know, like you can't not hang out with someone who's wise and not get a little bit of wisdom from the group of wise people. But the opposite is also true. It's funny how influence happens by the people we hang out with. So the Apostle Paul, in this letter to the Corinthians, he quoted a modern writer back then. And you've probably heard this, bad company ruins good morals. He said that in 1 Corinthians. He was quoting someone else. You've heard bad company ruins good character. Pastor Brian has frequently said, who speaks wisdom into your life? He said that from up here. He said that in his office. He's said that in groups. I've heard it many times. It's a very important question that we have to ask ourselves. Who's speaking wisdom into our lives? Who is it? Is anybody speaking wisdom into your life? Do we allow people to speak wisdom into our lives? One thing that I've concluded as I've walked with the Lord for many years, because I'm definitely a loner. You may not think that I am, but I am. I like to be with people, but give me my alone time, because if you mess with it, I might come at you. I need to be alone. But we're not created by God to walk alone. And as a matter of fact, I don't think that we can thrive if we're walking alone. So we weren't created by God to be alone. It even says in Genesis that it's not good for man to be alone. I don't think that was just about like this momentary little thing. I think he was saying, no, it's really important for us to have companionship and walk with people and be in fellowship with others. It is not good. Everything else was good in the garden when he was creating, but it's not good for man to be alone. So God intends for human beings to be together, and not just be together, but to thrive. And we see that in the early church. You've probably seen the word koinonia or heard it, the Greek word for fellowship, much deeper than going to dinner with someone, much deeper than hanging out with a family at your house or whatever. It's a partnership. Koinonia means people walking together in faith, supporting each other and living out God's love side by side. Koinonia is real and meaningful, with connections that go beyond just attending a worship service or saying hello to someone or being nice to someone. And this type of community is designed by God, and it really is the connection through our relationship to the Holy Spirit. So we're supposed to walk through life together. Hebrews chapter 10 says this: let us think of ways, man, if we could do this, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. So we should be sitting around thinking of ways to motivate one another and to acts of love and good works, instead of thinking about ourselves all the time. I should be encouraging you and helping you, and you should be helping me. And then it says, this is in Hebrews, it says, let us not neglect our meeting together. As some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. So by coming together and meeting together, we have the opportunity to encourage one another. If we never come together, then it's much harder. Yeah, we can do it on Facebook. That doesn't count. There's a reason why I don't put my birthday on Facebook. I want real encouragement. I want face-to-face comments, and I want something deeper. And so encouragement is in person as much as we possibly can be. And I'm just going to put it out there. I think coming together in worship in this space is very, very, very important. We come together as a collective body and we worship our God. But I believe that the smaller settings, don't hurt me, are probably more important. Yeah. I think they're more important. You know why? Anybody have a reason? Let's just pretend I'm a teacher up here. Why is it important for us to come together in smaller groups? More intimate. We can talk. Accountability. There's a lot of reasons. Oh, so we can gossip together. Not so we can, hold on, so we can bash Pastor Patina in a small group setting. You can do it right here. You can do it to my face. Thank you, you do that. So it's important, though, to remember. You're like, well, we all know this. Well, yeah, but are you doing it? That's all I'm asking. If we want to be wise, we surround ourselves with wise people. And we find people to do life with. So who we walk, this is my second point, who we walk with shapes who we become. So wise people, we hang around wise people, we become wise. We hang around foolish people, we become foolish. Somebody asked me the last service, well, aren't we supposed to go and hang out with people who are sinners? Yes. How much are they influencing you? Like, we have to think about these things. And if you are doing that, that's great. But do you have a group over here of wise, godly people who you hang out with frequently and talk about real life? Jim, where's Jim Besh? Is he in here? Jim, you could be up here talking about this, couldn't you? How is your soul today, Jim? You're like, my soul is good. You got your group going. Listen, Jim Besh has been talking about this for a long time. Well, there's a reason he's talking about it. So let me go back into the verse I read in the beginning. Psalm 1. I want to break that down just a little bit, because if you read that verse, the verse 1, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scoffers. I want you to think about those. There is a progression. So if you start with, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked. So who are the wicked? Well, what it technically means there, wicked could technically mean maybe even some of us, which means this: those who are, we would call ourselves followers of God or worshipers of God, but if we're not trusting God and walking by faith, that's what this is talking about. So this is saying that we have this way of life, walking, a man who walks not in the counsel, so the advice about how we should live. And this person is not a person who claims to be maybe a God follower, but maybe someone whose life does not provide the evidence that that's actually what they do. So as a way of life, the God follower is happy when they do not actively seek advice from someone who is not walking and trusting God, walking by faith and trusting God. So blessed is the man when they do not frame their life according to the views and suggestions of those who are not walking by faith. This really struck me because I thought, have I ever been in the company of people and given them counsel that wasn't faith-driven? Has anybody ever done that with me? We have to ask ourselves that question. So the second part of that, blessed or happy, is the man or woman who does not stand in the way of sinners. Well, now we see we were walking, but now we're standing. So if you're standing in the way of sinners is actually somebody in the Bible who missed the mark. So these are people who would say, well, I'm not a Christian, I'm not, So you're standing with them. You're hanging out with them. You're waiting to be in their presence because you enjoy it. And then you're hearing what they have to say and their counsel to you of what you should do or how you should live your life. In this situation, the God follower is overjoyed and happy when they do not make a deliberate attempt to find their way into places where sinners hang out for the sake of being accepted by them, to doing deep life things with them. They do not actively seek out or wait for or engage in listening to the advice of non-believers. And because they live in that way, they are happy and joyful and blessed. And the third one, as we progress now, you see that the blessed is the man who does not sit in the seat of the scoffer. So what's a scoffer? Well, a scoffer, they're those who treat the things of God with contempt. So now the person potentially has moved from just hanging out with people who don't really live out their faith and walk by faith so much to people who are not God followers at all, and you're hanging out with them a lot. Then you move into the seat of the scornful. You become the person who has contempt for God and doesn't want to fall under God's guidance and leadership. So the God follower who does not participate in life with those who treat God with contempt and who does not have a permanent place in their social circles is happy, overjoyed, and blessed. So in summary, Psalm 1 reveals a clear progression, a slow but dangerous drift, and it starts with the company that we keep. It often starts small, And at first, maybe we simply find ourselves alongside those who reject God's ways, and maybe out of chance or convenience or work relationships or school relationships or whatever it is. And maybe they are a group who say they are Christians, but they don't walk by faith really, and you're hanging out with them outside of church, but you're not really living how you know in a way that glorifies God. Maybe they're just a group of friends, but if we're not careful, we begin to linger. We begin to stand among them, becoming more comfortable with their patterns and their values, and that begins to influence us. And before long, what began as casual turns into something much deeper. And we choose to sit with them, to settle in, to make their way of life our way of life. But our joy and our happiness is greatly affected by the company that we keep. So that's why I highly recommend, and I know that the word also is clear, that a godly, wise inner circle of friends and relationships will strengthen our faith and will bring us great joy and happiness. So I was asking some questions. I think I want to ask you guys, because you're like, well, I have a group. So here are some things to think about in the groups that you're in. If you're not in a group, I want you to listen to what I'm saying here. The questions I have: do those you walk with, your inner circle, encourage you to trust God in all areas of your life? Money, family, job, relationships, your future, your dreams, maybe even how you handle or are processing through regrets and grief. Do those you walk with encourage you in all of those areas to trust God? Do those you walk with build up and encourage you? That's an important thing as well. Like, we need one another to build each other up, to encourage each other, to remain steadfast and to use our gifts and follow God. There's so many benefits to that. Do they hold you accountable and provide wise counsel? Do they warn you about sin? You're like, I don't sin. What do you mean? It says in Galatians, Paul says, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. Have you ever given someone permission to hurt you? So that's a weird thing to say, right? John Deloney, who is a mental health expert, I was listening to him a couple weeks ago, and he has a podcast that's titled, "Are You Giving Other People Permission to Hurt You?" And it caught my attention. I'm like, I need to go see what that's about. So he suggests that we identify 4 or 5 people that you give permission to speak truth into your life, to speak honestly. And my advice would be that these people would be wise, godly men and women. He said that because he's a podcaster, he gets a lot of people who are always giving him words of advice and cutting him down, and it hurt him deeply. And he finally is like, those people don't matter to me. I have 4 or 5 people who can say to me something that no one else can say, and it potentially will hurt me, meaning they are saying it in a positive way for my own good because they love me, and it hurts me because I can't see that in myself, and I need to change. So I remember when I was young, I guess 19 or 20 probably, and I had a friend of mine who I worked with, and she was older than me, and we were sitting at lunch one day, and she said, and she was a Christian woman, she said, you should probably stop gossiping. What? I was like, who said? My friends don't say it. What are you talking about? And I got really defensive. I was like, wait a minute. And what I wanted to say, well, you are just as bad, girl. But why did I get defensive? because she was speaking truth. She didn't do it in an unloving way. She did it in a very loving way. It took me like 3 days to process and be reflective. I started learning at a young age that I had like some walls up, and that it was hard for me to hear and look at myself in that way, because I looked at it as rejection and not being accepted, but that's not what it was. And sometimes we're the person, by the way, who needs to be on that side. We need to be the one. We need to be the one saying, you know what? Is that really a good idea to talk about that? Or I had a friend say to me one time that she was, I worked with her years ago, and she said, I've got some good news. I want to have dinner with you. And she's like, I'm dating someone. And she was really excited about it. That's wonderful. She goes, you know who it is? I said, oh. So I started like guessing names, and like I couldn't guess who it was. And then finally I looked at her and I said, is this person married? And she said, yes. And then I guessed the name of who it was. And I looked at her and I said, he's married. He has 4 children. Stop it. That is not wise what you're doing. I told her that. It's her choice then, and she didn't stop. And it ended in a huge train wreck. We are called to be in fellowship with one another. And one of those things is to hold each other accountable and to be wise. And then why do we want to do that? Well, because we want to walk faithfully. I want to walk faithfully to the end. We all have seasons in our lives. We all have things that are happening in our lives that we're not perfect. We make bad decisions. We choose erroneously. We do a lot of things we shouldn't do. But you know what? When I look back and I think about my life, the biggest decisions that I made and mistakes I made were related to the fact that I didn't have a group of wise people around me, that I was listening to what they were saying. So in closing, the final point, there's a story in the Old Testament, and it's in 2 Chronicles and 1 Kings, if you want to go back and read it. It's this incredible story about this man named Asa. And Asa was this king, and he was a great king. He was a king for 41 years, and he loved God. When he became king, he's like, we're revamping the whole nation. We're going to love God. We're going to serve God. And he just did this big revamp of the whole nation. And he was a great leader, and everybody loved him. And he was attacked by this huge army, and he cried out to God, and God intervened and helped him. And then after he had been king for 36 years, he got himself into a situation where he was in the middle of a battle. And I'm not going to go into all the details of what happened, but there were these 2 kingdoms at war. It was the kingdom of Judah. Asa was the king of Judah, and the kingdom of Israel. And Asa's kingdom was threatened. So he went through a process. He paid someone else, another country, to attack Israel. And his plan worked, by the way. His plan worked, and his nation, his country was good. And from the outside looking in, it seems like that this was the best plan. I want you to hear something really important right now. Sometimes we come up with plans based on our intelligence. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. And it looks good. And from the outside, to everyone looking on, it looks like it was the right answer because there was success. But we didn't trust God in the process. We trusted ourselves. And I want you to listen to what the prophet, the seer, Hanani says. So Hanani goes and he finds Asa. It says he came to Asa and told him, because you have put your trust in the king of Aram, he aligned himself with someone else, instead of the Lord your God, you missed your chance to destroy the army of the king of Aram. Don't you remember what happened to the Ethiopians and Libyans and their vast army with all of their chariots and charioteers? At that time, you relied on the Lord, and he handed them over to you. The eyes of the Lord search the whole earth in order to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. And what a fool you have been From now on, you will be at war. He lived so well until he lost sight of God and received counsel that was not godly. And the rest of his life, he served until he was as king for 41, so like 36 years until 41 years. It says that he threw the prophet into prison. They put him into stocks. It says that at that time, Asa also began to oppress some of his people. Asa began to sit in the seat of the scornful. So, here's my word to all of us. In the kingdom of God, who we keep company with matters. It really does. Coming into worship is incredible. I love seeing all of you here. But if you really want to thrive, you've got to be in close proximity where you can talk to at least 4 or 5 people, if possible weekly, as you read the Bible and come together and talk. So that's how we're going to end well on this short period of time that we have on this earth. And I had a few questions that I want you to think about right now and think, where do you fit in this whole thing? Who are the people in your life who influence you the most? Like, how do they impact your walk with God? Now this is important, do they impact your walk with God positively or negatively? Are there relationships in your life that you need to rethink? I've had to do that. You have to rethink them because they're pulling you away from God's best. My third question is, have you given permission to anyone in your life to speak hard truth to you? And then my last question is, who speaks wisdom into your life? If we want to thrive, we can't do this Christian walk alone. So we surround ourselves with some wise people who we meet with regularly. We talk about God. We hold each other accountable. And we serve God so that we can end well. That was what my goal is for you. Pastor Brian.